Hey, what's up, world? Y'all know who it is. No introduction is needed. Today, on the episode of The Dark Truth, we're here to talk about economics and is it the reason behind the violence that's going on in the black communities, in the urban communities, in the minority communities. So let's first start off with um, economics for urban America. There is a disparity between the opportunities that's been given for African Americans in this country. That is not a debate. Most people will agree with that. Most people from the civil rights era up until today, the equality on the scale is still imbalanced. And the question then comes, who's to blame for that? Now, we got obviously the people who print the US currency, Federal Reserve banks. This is a Federal Reserve note. It's a fake one, but you get the picture. Pull out a real one. This is a Federal Reserve note, right? On it, it says, this is legal tender for all debts, public and private. Federal Reserve note, United States of America, $100. It's a promise to pay. It's a promissory note. In America, we use it as a form of currency, literally. Even though it's not, we use it as a form of currency. It used to be a promise to pay in real currency, gold or silver coins. Under the Coinage Act, the only lawful money in the United States of America is gold or silver coins. So, this would be considered the only lawful money in the United States of America. Gold or silver. That's under the Coinage Act. But we live in an era of inflation. We live in an era of the Federal Reserve chairman during the Obama administration, Bernanke, said that they are in the printing money business. So they print money whenever they want to, how much ever they want. No matter if it's 687 billion or 3 trillion. Print it, give everybody a check. It's paper, you know. Too bad we can't print it for real and just be sitting around all this. But if you got some friends that may be friends with the central banking system of London, family that's responsible for printing the US currency, you might can make a phone call and say, hey, print me up $1 billion. We'll say it came from here, or we'll just keep it off the books. People sitting around with big stacks of billions worth of cash in a basement. You know, I'm friends with the Rothschilds, you know, the J.P. Morgans, and you know, central bankers, people who privately own the Federal Reserve Bank and print and issue Federal Reserve note. So when you put your money in the bank and it says FDIC insured, that means any loan that goes through this bank, any transaction that goes through this bank, has to be reported to the Fed, to the Federal Reserve, and has to be approved by the Fed. So when you apply for a loan and you get denied, it wasn't that bank that denied you, it was the Fed that said, no, we're not sending them no money. So when you talk about violence and what is the motivation behind violence, and you try to say it's economics, but when you look at the facts for what they are, economics may be a driving force behind crime, but do economics make a poor person want to go kill another poor person? That don't even make sense. I mean, if it was really about economics, wouldn't poor people be killing rich people? Like, for real, like, would they, I'm mad, I'm poor. That guy's in the Bentley. I'm about to go follow him and shoot him just because he's in the Bentley. Why are they killing other poor people? That's one way to prove economics isn't behind the violence. Don't make sense. But the number one way to prove economics isn't behind the violence? Because in the same communities that you got African Americans killing other African Americans, you got poor white people that live in those communities too. They not shooting other poor white people. They not shooting other poor black people. They ain't shooting nobody, but they poor. The economic tide is against them. They suffer. They live in the same poor community on the south side as black people. On the east side, it's black people. You got poor Hispanics. They not killing other poor Hispanics. They not killing other poor black people. At least not in the city I'm in. In the city I'm in, we had 34 homicides last year. 33 of them was black people. Almost 99% of the arrests that they did make for those homicides was other black people. When you look at the crime rate and the violence perpetuating in the African American community or in minority communities, impoverished communities, why is it only black people killing other black people? But you got poor people of all races and nationalities. Well, I don't say all races and nationalities because I don't be seeing a lot of like poor India people or poor Chinese people. I'm just gonna say that's a whole other story. But you definitely got poor white people and you got poor Hispanic people in these urban minority communities. But they not killing each other because they're poor. They're not killing nobody because they're poor. You know what they're doing? They're working hard to get up out of that situation they're in. They're coming together with their people to find ways and solutions to get up out of poverty, to make money, to grow, especially being in America, still an opportunity. So when you hear people blaming economics for being the cause of the violence, and then next thing you know, the narrative in Illinois, they governor $250 million behind violence prevention. But then next thing you know, the narrative changes to crime prevention. As soon as you change that narrative, you broaden the amount of people and programs that can apply for these funding, and none of these programs are going to go to the root problem of what's causing the violence. You have a program over here like, oh, we're going to help them get jobs. They don't want no job. How you going to convince somebody to get a job when they see little kids and young people going viral on social media every day, and now it's monetized, And they making money off social media, off just doing goofy stuff or being on there with their guns and, acting like I got ops everywhere, and go viral and get a check. Why am I gonna come work for $11 an hour for you? Let alone the whole hip hop music drill culture is convincing our kids that if you go catch a body or two, beat them, rap about it in a song, you gonna blow up. You gonna become a drill rapper and you gonna make millions of dollars if you can manage to stay alive. If you can manage to stay out of jail. Most drill rappers are getting murdered before they can even make their millions. Or getting indicted. So it don't make sense for people to keep blaming economics. And it don't make sense for them to blame systemic racism for the reason behind the violence. And violence and crime is two different things. A lot of people commit crimes. It's a crime to just not report a crime that you seen happen. So if you see somebody riding down the street, committing a crime in their car and you didn't call the police, you committed a crime. You're a criminal for not reporting on a felony. There's blue collar crimes. There's Medicare fraud. There's PPP loan fraud. That's not violence. That's not violence prevention. So when you change the language on funds that was initiated for this type of language, that's called misappropriation of funds. People go to jail for that. Illinois is legendary for locking up politicians. Legendary. We send governors to the federal penitentiary in Illinois. So you can't change the language once government funding say it's for this, which is violence prevention. That's what the $250 million was for. Violence prevention, not crime prevention. So you can't stop and frisk and say, oh, we're trying to curb violence, but we're writing people tickets. We're taking people to jail for simple possession of marijuana. None of that is curbing violence. Why you think the violence isn't curbing? Why you think the activities of the youth isn't changing? Because nobody is getting to the root of the problem. And when you ask yourself, people gotta be intelligent enough to know this, right? To see this, right? Of course. So then why isn't the violence prevention funding going towards violence prevention? You know why? Because long as the problem doesn't get solved, the money keeps coming. The paper funding keeps coming. All in the name of your dead child. All in the name of your dead child. Or your future dead child. Because look around. These kids is running around reckless. And when you look at the statistics, it hasn't changed for the last 15, 20 years in the same areas, the same hot zone areas. It hasn't changed. If anything, it's only elevated and got worse. And you know why it's got worse? Because the music has gotten worse. The music dictates everything. Literally. Not metaphorically. Literally. It's the music. It's the root cause of the mental makeup of our youth today and why they act the way they act. And until we get to the root of that problem, nothing's gonna change. We get to the root of that problem, these kids will flourish, become millionaires, even billionaires. Economics won't be the problem because we'll be creating our own wealth, like a Black Wall Street. We'll be creating our own businesses, our own industries, instead of building and creating someone else's industry or business. So shout out to the people who see this vision at a young age and an early age to start building your own foundation. Because it takes time. It's not something you're just going to build overnight. It's going to take time. So it's smart to start as young as possible, building your own. Even if you do get a job working for somebody else, that's just to make money, to invest in your business, in your company. And then you change the economic problem by creating businesses, not creating jobs. Because if you create businesses, businesses create jobs. I appreciate all y'all tuning in to this episode of The Dark Truth. And we know economics is a problem in this country, but economics been a problem in this country since 1913 under the Woodrow Wilson administration, when they gave the power to the Fed and said a privately owned central bank will be responsible for printing and issuing our currency. Not too long after that, we had the Great Depression. So and not too long after that, we had the Social Security Act, which put a stamp and a number on all of us. So economics been a problem in this country, and it ain't just for Black people. Remember, majority of the world is in poverty. You got a small percentage of rich people, wealthy people around the world, the 1%. The other 99% of the world is in poverty. So, saying economics isn't a Black game. And you don't see the other people in the world that's in poverty using that as an excuse to kill each other. You don't. And I'm not talking about cartels and all that, because cartels got more money than governments. Those people killing people ain't poor. Those people killing people rich. They sitting around in piles of cash like this, for real. It's nothing. Yeah, they killing people for money, for territory, because they under orders. And usually, who runs the cartels? Y'all seen Snowfall, right? Exactly. The CIA. So our next episode of The Dark Truth, it's gonna be the CIA, the cartel, and the counterintelligence program, and who putting all the drugs in this country, who responsible for backing some of the most notorious cartels in the world that literally be under orders to kill and assassinate people, just like they did to the Black Panthers and the Black Panther Party with their confidential informants who assassinated and murdered members of the Black Panther Party. Appreciate y'all tuning into The Dark Truth. This is well, and remember, economics ain't the problem, it's the music.